I want to give a shout out to our national sponsor, Barnstormers Wood. They offer the best reclaimed barn wood in North America. From showcase barnwood home construction, designer wood flooring, shelving, and more. Check them out online at barnstormerswood.com. And Harvey Hand and Associates, the residences of Lighthouse Cove, Dewey Beach. Do you like the idea of luxury living? That's exactly what you'll find at the Residences of Lighthouse Cove. More online at theresidencesde.com. And the Sprouse Thomas Group, where coastal leisure finds its home, an affiliate of Berkshire Hathaway Home Services, Gallo Realty. More online at isellthebeach.net. I have a very special guest. However, as fate would have it, we're having a connectivity issue with California right now. I have Tony Dow. We're trying to get him on the line. We're having some issues getting the phone call through. We had a test run yesterday and everything went great. But for some reason, right now in California, we're getting nothing but error messages and busy signals when we try to contact him. He will be hopefully joining us, knock on wood, this hour. But right now on the phone, I do have his agent, Frank Bilotta, who's also the curator of the beautiful Frank Bilotta Gallery, where Tony Dow shows his work, his sculpting pieces. Good morning, Frank. Thanks for joining me on Coastal A&E.
Good morning, Michael. How are you?
I'm hanging in there. I'm hanging in there. It's been a chaotic morning. As you know, you and I have been working for the last couple of weeks to put this interview together, and as fate would have it, the very last minute, we can't get through. I'm not quite sure what's going on. You've tried to reach out to Tony yourself this morning, haven't you?
Yes, I have. I've called a bunch of times. What happens, he lives in a place called Topanga Canyon, and in California, and the thing is, he's in the hills, the mountains there. And what happens every once in a while, and as fate would have it, I guess it happened this morning, is when he loses his phone, I mean, everything goes out. He can't get, his phones don't work, his internet doesn't work. So, like I said, as fate would have it, you're stuck with me until he can somehow get on.
That's okay. Hey, I'm all good with that. Maybe our fans will be disappointed, but there's a very good chance that he will be joining us this hour. So I just ask for everyone to be patient. This is, right now under the pandemic that we're in, and I'm in my living room right now, and I'm not sure where you are, Frank. People are sort of having to make as they can while we get through these waves of media issues. I will tell you this, if we cannot get Tony on today, we will definitely get him back on the show soon. I'm sure that's something that you can make happen. Oh,
absolutely. Tony was really looking forward to this as well. And we're trying on another line right now to try and get through. Everything just is dead.
Yeah.
We will.
That's why I'm glad I'm on the East Coast of the United States. Okay, I'm not really sure what's going on out there right this morning, but we will do our best to get him through. You yourself, Frank, you have a beautiful gallery in Deerfield Park, Florida, and you do represent Tony's work, and he is an amazing sculptor. Give me a little bit of history as to how you ended up having his beautiful artwork in your gallery.
Well, it's kind of, I guess it's kind of a long story, but I think we have time.
We do. We do got plenty of time right now.
I had this idea about, it's been over 10 years now, of showcasing celebrities that are also artists. What happened was I initially sent Tony a letter about 10 years ago, maybe more, and asked him if he would be interested in displaying some of his sculptures in the gallery. And one thing led to another, and we spoke, and I actually went out there and met with Tony and Lauren, and one thing led to another. He said, Frank, take it and run with it. I've been representing pretty much all of his sculptures, everything that he does for a long time now. I'd like to preface that by saying, because we've got all Tony fans that are tuning in here, I can honestly say, you talk about Tony and then you talk about Wally, they're pretty much one and the same. He is Wally Cleaver. He and his wife too are truly two of the nicest people I have ever met in my entire life. They're absolutely wonderful, wonderful people. And it's really been a pleasure handling Tony's work and dealing with a lot of his fans. I'm ecstatic doing it. It's actually a lot of fun.
Well, his work is beautiful, and I think it was probably close to about 8 years ago that I, on a fluke, happened to come across images of his work online. I think at the time I wasn't quite sure that it was Tony Dow. I didn't connect the dots. but I did happen to see images of his sculpting pieces, and I was very taken with them. The idea that people, Wally from Leave It To Beaver, were making these beautiful contemporary, organically infused, beautiful pieces, bronze. A lot goes into his work. And it was very, very impressive. So you must have seen, when you saw the work initially, that must have been very exciting for you.
Yes, it really was. I mean, he works in both bronze and wood. Some of his wood pieces are one of a kind, and some of them he starts out, he'll make them in wood, and then they'll go and he'll have a bronze casting made. And when he does his bronze castings, it's always limited. It's limited to a series of 9. So any of the bronze pieces are pretty much, most of them are all a series of 9. And a lot of the wood pieces they're just one of a kind. Beautiful, beautiful pieces. You can see them, pretty much if anybody wants to see them, they can go to, the BilottaGallery.com and just look up Tony Dow, because we do have, at the gallery itself, we do have a lot of celebrities that are artists as well.
Yeah,
There's others besides Tony, but Tony is, I probably shouldn't say this, but Tony's my favorite for a lot of reasons. For a lot of reasons. It's beautiful work, and it's just such a pleasure dealing with them.
When he and I were doing our run-through of the broadcast yesterday, you're absolutely right. It was really touching to see how similar he was as a person now, some 60 years later, as he was to that character. And at one point, he was wrestling with some papers, and there was something he was looking for, and I think he actually said, "Shucks, I can't find this thing." And it's perfect. It was like something Wally would say. But I didn't want to say, "Oh, you sound just like Wally." If we get him in this conversation, and again, apologies to fans, we're doing our very best right now to make that happen. He might be calling in at any second. I wasn't quite sure how open he was to talking about his years of experience in that television program. It's an iconic television program. Anybody that I've spoken to him about his appearance on the show was thrilled, and they instantaneously knew who I was talking about. They're without a doubt. Everyone's like, "Yes, Leave It to Beaver." We still watch that show now, is what I've been getting from many, many people, because, of course, with what's happening in the country right now, and particularly, I think that there's a strong connection to the nostalgia, to happier times, to peaceful memories.
Absolutely.
And most anyone that grew up in this country watching Leave It to Beaver makes that connection.
I absolutely agree. And we have actually been trying to get Tony to write a book about his life for a long time now. He's just so hesitant to do it. He's like, "Well, he tells me, Frank, well, nobody wants to know about me. Nobody cares. Nobody wants to know." And I tell him, I said, you couldn't be more wrong. He is probably the most humble person I've ever met. And I said, I keep telling him, you could not be more wrong about that. And if you actually go to his Facebook page, he has the most loyal fans I have ever seen in my life. I mean, people write in all the time these things that he has done over his lifetime, from Leave It to Beaver, and then moving on from there. He acted for a while. He did a lot of different TV shows and whatnot, but he's also extremely, extremely proud of his directing. Harry and the Hendersons, Deep Space Nine. Just a whole
Deep Space Nine, yeah. I'm really keeping my fingers crossed that he's going to be able to call in and finish through with this conversation. And as I said, I know that everyone's disappointed. Trust me when I say no one is more disappointed or frustrated than I am. Yes.
This is Lauren Dow.
Lauren.
Right. Lauren, my honey.
All right.
All the phones were down. Hang on a second.
Well, we're making some progress.
Hey,
the
internet was down, so we couldn't call you on the cell phone until now. And so obviously, if the internet was down, it didn't work. The phones didn't work, and nothing worked. Our phones don't work. I don't know what's wrong with our phones.
Oh, that's okay. Everyone, this is the voice of Tony Dow. For people that are mistaken, Tony Dow, good morning. Welcome to the show. Thanks for calling in.
Hey, well,
I got Frank on the other line, too, so we're having a little powwow here.
Yeah, you can call me on Facebook now, and I'll punch the button, and I guess. I don't know what'll happen.
Well, okay, so everything is back up then, correct, Tony? You're back online?
Yeah, the internet now is back working.
Okay, great. We'll have to wait until the break, and we will do that at the break at the end of in about 15 minutes. So we'll just finish this phone conversation now, and then we'll get your video on as well for the second half hour, and all is well in the world again, which is great. I'm very happy about that.
Okay, and
Frank, you can stay on the line too if you'd rather. It's totally your call at this point.
Okay, I didn't hear what you said because I was talking at the time. You said You said Lauren can stay on the phone? Is that what you said?
Frank, we have Frank Bilotta on the other line as well, Tony.
Oh, good. Hey, Frank.
Hey, Tone.
Hey, man. Well, I told you don't do this technical stuff with me.
I know. But you know what? This was like, hey, Tony, this was like my 15 minutes of fame. I got to be on with Michael Sprouse for 15 minutes.
Oh, yeah? Well, very cool.
And actually, I was talking about you, and I was talking very nicely about you for 15 minutes. Can you believe it?
Well, you'll have to let me hear it to...
No, I can attest to it. He was saying really great things about you. Absolutely. About your work, about your sculpting pieces, about obviously your career in television and directing, and how right before you got on the line, he was mentioning how proud you were of the directing jobs that you've had over the years.
Yeah,
Deep Space Nine and Harry and the Hendersons.
Yeah, I mean, when I was 16 and still working on the show, I always liked what the directors were doing, and I thought, when I finish acting, I really like to direct. Well, everybody in Hollywood wants to direct, so I got a chance because we started up a new show, and I made it part of the contract that I get to direct some, which I did, and then of course I continued on for 18 years, whatever it was. I really enjoyed it. It's really fun because you I don't like to have control particularly, but when you're an actor, you just sit around in the honey wagon or whatever it's called, and you just wait and wait and wait and sleep and wait until the guy comes and pounds on the door and says, "Come on, you got to go. We're late. We're really late. Come on, hurry up." And then you go do your scene. It's crazy. So the director is there all the time and dealing with everything. A million questions, almost a million answers. So anyway, yeah, I enjoyed that.
When you were filming with Leave It To Beaver, which you did for 6 years, between 57 and 63, well, actually, one of the things that you told me yesterday, which I thought was phenomenal, you've said that the show, since it first aired in 1957, it has still continuously been aired for that entire time. It's still on the air. You have legions of fans. Well, what is it about that show? I mean, we all know and love that gave it that staying power, in your opinion.
Well, the writers were brilliant because of the shows even work in today's world. They all had a little message, and they were, it was a universal kind of a show, so that we didn't have any particular time frame on it. It was really a brilliant show from the writer's standpoint. And I think it was interesting because all the stories were taken from real life. The producers, who were the writers and the creators of the show, they had kids, and the kids would tell them these stories, and they'd write them, and then when they started having new writers come in. Like George Tibbles was a writer, and Dick Conway. Anyway, what happened is, if a new writer came in and started to try to pitch a story, that he thought would be good for Leave It To Beaver, they'd go through the whole pitch, and then Joe Connolly would say, yeah, well, that's good, but listen, tell me, what's the worst thing that ever happened to you as a kid? And they would talk about what happened to them as a kid, and he said, okay, go write that. Go write that story. So anyway, it was, which I thought was brilliant. It's just a lucky show. I mean, everything clicked into place.
Well, I was watching of course, I had to watch an episode last night, and I found an episode was described as a rarity. And even though I remember the storyline in this particular episode, it also, I believe, they were pushing savings bonds. And the story revolved around the beaver who was saving up for a bike, but his friend Larry talks him into getting a little airplane instead, and the airplane breaks, and of course Beaver's heart is broken because he can't get the bike, et cetera, et cetera. But he learned a valuable lesson in savings bonds, and they kept popping up the interest rate that he was going to make down the road. Was that something that was obviously, I don't know if that was an episode that would have aired in the season, or was that something that was made as just as special in connection with the government?
Did it take up the whole half hour?
It did. But it almost seems like, if I remember properly, that there was another version of it without the savings bond-ish element.
Really? Huh. Well, that's weird, because we did savings bonds commercials, public service announcements for savings bonds. I don't remember a show where we hit the savings bond, punched it up so much as you're talking about, but it sounds like a good a good show.
It was. I was like, hey, I learned something about savings bonds from the 1950s. I thought it was actually pretty cool.
Hey, guys, can I interject here? Can I ask Tony to explain a story for me?
Sure.
For everybody? All right.
Yeah.
Tony, you and I have had this conversation 1,000 times about, because you are very humble and you don't think your life is that interesting. I would like to, can you tell everybody out there, which I love, you've got so many stories, but one of the ones that I loved was when you were in a beaver, were in the back lot, and you were throwing a ball around or hitting a ball around.
Yeah.
Why don't you tell everybody about that?
Well, I assume that's because we hit a ball around every day, but I suspect you're telling the story where actually it was between the stages, and we'd go out there and we'd throw the football around, or we'd play football the length of the stage, or we'd play baseball. Somebody was pitching, and I hit the ball really well. It flew over everybody's head, and it hit Steve McQueen's Jaguar, and it broke the windshield on it. So as kids, we obviously got up and ran like hell, we got but then we thought about it and said, well, we should really, so we put a note on his car, and we said who did it, and, that we're on stage 17, and we're really sorry, and what can we do? So then he came over and he said, it's okay, boys. It's okay. I can get a new windshield for it. As long as nobody gets hurt, everything's okay. So it was I got an interchange with Steve McQueen, who obviously is a hero.
Oh, that's a great story. That would be a good plot line for a Leave It To Beaver episode. It's like, I broke Steve McQueen's windshield.
I think we did like that. Go ahead, Frank.
No, I mean, it's just stories like that. You have had an extremely interesting life, and you've got so many of these stories to share with everybody.
It's one of the things I like about this show is I like it to be very conversational and fun, and one of the elements is great stories like that. And Tony, I can only imagine you have all types of stories. We've got 2 minutes before we're going to go to our break, and when we come back, as I said, during that break period, we're going to try to get you on video, Tony, so we can all just see you and talk more about your work and your beautiful home in California. One of the things you showed me yesterday was that really spectacular miniature version of the Cleaver's house, which was nice.
Yeah,
I'm sure you have all types of memorabilia.
I can take that down again.
The call-in number is 302-335-6200. And call in, get some questions for Tony and Frank, too, while we're here on the line. Talk about your work at the gallery, which is beautiful. And I do definitely want to talk to you about your inspiration behind these pieces. The act of casting bronze. I'm so impressed with that, because I don't know if people understand what a lot of tremendous work is involved in that process. It really is.
It's a lot of work
impressive.
And a lot of expense. Both.
I'll tell you right now. I'm gonna talk over the two of you. His inspiration.
Oh, hold on. We got 30 seconds, Frank. We got 30 seconds. We're going to our break. So hold that thought. We're going to be right back.
I'll finish in 30 seconds. Don't worry about it.
You can.
Yes, something. His inspiration is his absolutely beautiful and wonderful wife, Lauren. And I'm going to tell you right now, she is the most wonderful person. So that is Tony's inspiration. Am I right or wrong, Tony?
Yep, no, you're right. You're right.
Yep.
She's the one who yells at me and tells me to get up and then workshop and do something. So
yes.
That's my inspiration.
All right, welcome back everybody to Coastal A&E. I need to give a quick shout out to some of our sponsors of the show. Inspections Guaranteed, an authorized dealer of the On Guard system. Go from home inspection to home protection. More online at inspectionsguaranteed.com. And The Closet Works, the only closet company on DelMarVa, offering the exclusive curved hanging system. It's your life, just well organized. More at theclosetworks.net. And The Lodge at Truett Homestead, Delaware's premier luxury retirement community. Life your way. More information at vpretirement.com. I've got Tony Dow. He is here. He is actually here. Welcome to the show. It's good to see
Michael.
you.
Hi, Michael. How you doing?
I'm good, man. Thank you very, very much. It was a little rough morning, but we got through it. So I guess you have some. I was just not quite sure what was going on in California this morning. You know, there was an earthquake and outside of Vegas yesterday, I believe, the day before.
Was there? Well, we can blame it on that. No, I don't know. You know, as usual, I'm a technical whiz, and any time I try to do anything, it gets screwed up. And the internet went off. I have no idea. You know, it went off like, when I got up, I guess it was out. I don't know. So
well, you know what? It's good. You're here now, and we had the first. You were able to have a phone conversation with us, you and your lovely wife, the first part of the show, which I really appreciate. We also have Frank Bilotta on the line, who's your agent, and he owns the Bilotta Gallery in Florida. It's a beautiful gallery, and he has shown your work for many years now. Frank, are you still with us?
Yes, I am. I'm right here.
All right, and Frank, you're in Florida, correct? You're there near the gallery.
Yes, I am in Florida right now, sitting in the backyard, and just like everybody else, staying home. So
everybody should stay home.
Everybody.
Yeah.
Yep.
Firstly, we should give a shout out to all the people that, were on the front line and they're still working so hard. And for some reason, it seems screwed up to me that that they don't have protection and all that. And then, of course, really sorry about the people that have lost husband, wife, kid, friends, whatever. It's a horrible thing. And just know we're all thinking about you. Don't know you by name, but we're thinking about you.
Agreed. That's beautiful, beautiful. Thank you for sharing those words. And, that leads me into elements of your art, because when you're on the Bilotta Gallery's website and they have photographs of your beautiful sculpting pieces, and you have little vignettes with the stories with several of them, and you reference the fact that spiritual elements are very important in your work. And when I was looking at your work, particularly the mixed media pieces, which I'm very drawn to, where you have bronze and wood mixed together or found elements, and they have these great geometric designs where they're smooth and flowing at one point, and then let's say there's the cube and then the round circle. I just think they're really beautiful and organically put out there, and that spiritual element, that sense of caring, seems to come across in your work.
Well, it's interesting because I'm not religious at all, and but it just seems to come out. I have a couple pieces looking for God and Adam's rib and in the beginning, and they all sort of have a reference to to what happened back then. So, and I don't know where it comes from really, but. Maybe I'm a spiritual person and I don't know.
That could be it. Well, when did you start? When did you first say, "Hey, I'm gonna try this. I'm gonna go out and find a piece of wood in the forest here and make something out of it"?
Well, actually, it was 2000, but I'd always planned once I stopped directing, and that was about the time I stopped directing. I always planned to be a sculptor, and I was going to get a little shack down by the beach, and with a little workshop, and just sculpt. And so anyway, that didn't happen. We're in Topanga, in a beautiful house and beautiful place. So basically, I started in 2000, and the first couple pieces I liked, and I thought, well, maybe these are okay. Maybe I should keep trying. So I kept at it. I've probably done 130 pieces, maybe more, and sold probably 70 pieces. Frank sold a bunch of them, and I do commissions. So.
Well, I read at one point that Barbara Billingsley, who of course played your mother on Leave It To Beaver, had one of your pieces in her backyard. That must have been quite touching and beautiful to see that.
In Motion, which is it's a fairly big piece, and it's got a wing out. It's I like it a lot. and she obviously liked it.
And you also had work that was in a very special exhibit in Paris.
Oh boy, yeah, that was amazing. I was in a gallery in Beverly Hills. I guess they sent my photographs of my piece in because it's a jury show. It was at the Louvre, part of the Louvre. It wasn't next to Michelangelo or anything. It's a show that's been going on since the 1800s. I think that what happened is Rodin was one of the people who started it, and I think they just got tired of doing these pieces for all these people, and then the people would sell them for twice the amount of money, and they didn't get anything from them. They didn't have residuals on paintings back then. Don't have them now either. What happened is they decided, well, why don't we have a show of our own and sell our own pieces? So that's the story, I think, behind this this show. And I was one of two sculptors from America, and then we had a couple of painters. And actually, one of our painters took third in the show. So it was really an interesting show. A lot of interesting pieces.
Yeah, well, just from what I read about it, it sounds, and that's still an ongoing exhibit that they have, that every year they have a new one?
No, it's like a limited, maybe a week,
Oh, I see. Now, when you were working in Leave It To Beaver, you mentioned that you and Jerry Mather, that you play ball a lot on the set, and then you had that funny story about the baseball hitting Steve McQueen's windshield. But were you also thinking at that time about art, or was that even on your radar? Was it more about your art as in the acting? I know that you also were very athletic when you were younger, before you even got involved with the show. Is that correct? Yeah,
I was a diver and a swimmer, and I held some national records, age group national records, and I don't think I was planning on going to the Olympics, but my mother was planning on me going to the Olympics. So I kept diving. Oh, my wife was running in here, and she's handing me, see this photograph?
Yeah. Oh, that's a beautiful photograph.
Isn't that
wow.
Nice?
That's phenomenal. I read she was a stunt woman at one point.
She was Clara Bow's double.
Wow.
And I think stand-in. And then she started doing stunts. And one of the stunts that she perfected was jumping from a galloping horse onto a train or wagon or what, I guess train, and then jumping back from the train onto the horse. Nobody really did that much. So when you see that stunt, even if it's a male cowboy, it was probably her, because not a lot of people did that stunt. But anyway, yeah, she was. Wow. She wasn't interested in the business. She just, out of high school, I think, went down to the studio goofing around with some of her girlfriends, and she ended up as an extra in a film or something, and she ended up being one of Max Sennett's bathing beauties.
Really? Wow.
So she was in a bunch of films with, Buster Keaton, I guess, and Langdon, and anyway, but she wasn't that interested. So when she found my dad, she gave it all up.
Well, now, how did you? I read that when you ended up in the show, that was your first acting experience.
Yeah, could you tell?
No. I've ever read like, wow, actually, I was impressed, because I wasn't sure how you ended up, what made you say I'm going to audition for the show, or if that even was the scenario.
Well, the story is that where I was swimming and working out once a week every night, the lifeguard was an actor, and he came up to my mom one day and said, I'm up for this part in a TV series. It's a pilot. Can I take Tony in with me, because we kind of look alike? Maybe it would, strike a chord. So I got my blue suit on, and I went into the studio, and I'd never been in one. And I don't know how, but I got the part, and the series was called Johnny Wildlife. And it was a terrific series. I mean, some of the episodes were, well, it wasn't a full series. It was 2 pilots. But the two episodes were really ahead of their time. One was dealing about a toxic leak in the ocean. The other one was dealing about whaling and a country taking over their quota of whales. Anyhow, it was great. So that ended, and then the guy who was the executive producer of that was over at Universal, because the writers hadn't been producers, so they figured we need a showrunner and an executive producer. So they brought Harry Ackerman over. The pilot was made with a different Wally. So anytime you see a different Wally, that's the pilot. The show had been sold, so they had to get somebody to do it. And Harry was there, and he said, I worked with this kid. He's kind of raw, but you might want to take a look at him. So they called me in and talked to the guys, and I don't know, they said, okay, let's do it. And they cast me in the role.
Wow. So was it all sort of a big surprise to you, or was it something that you really wanted to happen, or were you just going with the flow of the path that was in front of you at that point in time?
Yeah, unfortunately, that's one of my traits, I think, is I just go with the flow. But yeah, I didn't have any aspirations at all. At the time, I was, an athlete, and I figured I'd probably continue on, and in high school I'd be a football player or a track guy or something. I think, as Ken Osmond says, who played Eddie Haskell, he says, the reason I got into the business was my mom was bigger than I was. So, actually, that's also Paul Peterson from the Donna Reed show. I think his mom was bigger than he was too.
Well, one of the things that I find so compelling about that show and your performance in particular as Wally over the years is you have that, your character seems so genuine, so real, reacting in a way that you do seem like someone just going with the flow. And I think that's what makes it so endearing, that you come across as such a true, genuine, believable person. Everyone in the show really does, but in particular, in my opinion, your performance as Wally really just earmarked that role. As I'm here having an American teenage life, and I like sports, and I got, some girlfriends, and I have a little side job. It was really just beautiful and very touching and sweet.
Well, that's the writers. As I got older, maybe 14 or so, I started when I was 12, so when I was 14 or so, and I realized the show was going on, and maybe I was going to be an actor, I went to some movies, and I was particularly enthralled with James Dean, Rebel Without a Cause and East of Eden, and he was just amazing. He underplayed everything, and at that time in television, most of the shows, everybody was it didn't seem natural to me. They were really struggling to keep things going. I didn't like that a lot, so I thought, well, I'll try to develop a natural kind of a style. That's how that happened, was watching James Dean, Montgomery Clift, some of those old-time guys that were really fantastic.
I was watching the other day about an interview with someone from film of the 1950s at that time, and they were talking about the new age of Hollywood, which were actors like that, Marlon Brando, James Dean.
Marlon Brando, yeah.
And, they had this very sort of raw approach to acting. And it worked really well for you because they were really believable roles when you were there. We only got about 10 minutes left in the hour. Do you have a particular episode that really has a lot of memories for you from the show?
The episode that I liked was, I liked a few of them. But one of the shows was a show where Dad wanted to relive his youth, so he wanted to go camping and take the family with him. So he said, boys, we're going to go camping. Isn't that great? And the boys said, no, we were going to the movies. It's Vampire, Dracula and the Vampires, or some odd name like that. He was disappointed, and then, of course, when June heard, she said, well, I don't have any clothes to go camping. And then finally we all agreed, and we went camping. And we went fishing, and of course, June had to clean the cabin because it was a little bit dirty. And the boys had this great scene where we're in bed and we're talking about Beaver wants to know, what would I do if I saw a bear? And I said, well, I grab him by the tail and I turn him inside out. And then what happened was we went fishing. We caught a few fish, and Dad was really happy and went in and told the guy, look at all the fish we got. Yeah, the guy says, yeah, we stocked it yesterday. and that made him feel really bad. So, because he wanted to show the kids how you catch fish when they're out in the lake. So he was getting more disappointed. And then finally we got ready to leave, and he said, where are the boys? And June said, well, they took some binoculars and then went outside. I don't know. And so he said, well, they're probably looking at birds or something like that. So he goes out and he finds us. He climbs up and lays down next to us as we're watching down the hill. And he says, what are you looking at, boys? And the boys say, well, I was driving down there, and they're showing the vampire and or whatever the name of the thing was. So we were watching the movie. Basically, he sort of lost out on that. And the theme was, you can't relive your childhood. And that's a wonderful thing. It's true.
That's great. Yeah, that's something I think I do remember that episode, as a matter of fact. Yeah, it's funny. It's a good one. Yeah. So I think, Frank, we have a few minutes left in this hour. Frank, let's give a shout out to the gallery where people can see Tony's work, because it's absolutely beautiful, and I want people to see just how incredible it is.
Sure. Well, you can actually just go to the Bilotta Gallery, BILOTTA gallery.com, and you can see all of Tony's work that is available right now for sale, and it's nice. You mentioned it earlier. In most of the pieces, you could see Tony's inspiration for those pieces. When you click on a piece and you look at it, you see a paragraph on that Tony has written about the piece and how the piece came into being. So it's really interesting. He really is an amazing sculptor. So please. Wow. Take a look, visit, and check out Tony's work.
Yeah, I highly suggest it. People have asked me, how did this interview, end up, and how did you end up getting Tony Dow? And this is a crazy story, but I woke up a couple of weeks ago in the middle of the night, and I'm like, I need to get Tony Dow on the show because I had seen some of your work. It popped on to my radar, and I really like when I want to focus on something, I just go for it. And next thing I know, I had Frank on the line, and I'm looking more at your work and reading the details. And I'm like, oh, this would just be beautiful. I think anything creative, it's what I like to talk about here on the show. I have artists, musicians, actors, writers, all of the above, because I think, especially now, it's just a perfect thing to celebrate that creativity.
Yeah, I think I don't know where it comes from, but same with musicians. I have a friend, Billy Mumy, and man, he's a terrific songwriter, and he plays and sings and does things, and he's really amazing. And we've talked about where does this stuff come from, and he's like me. He says, well, you sit around, and then all of a sudden you get up and go to the studio. I go to the workshop, and it just comes. You start mulling it over in your mind first and thinking about it, and then you go do it. So I don't know where all that comes from, but I'm glad that I have part of it, if I do. And
it's very interesting. But Tony truly is a creative person, and that goes, and you'll see that a lot with actors and artists. They're creative in more than just one thing. It's not just that they're an actor or they're an artist, but and somebody like Tony is just all around. He's creative. His whole life has been creative.
Yeah, I think that's true. I know a lot of artists, and you see their houses or you see their art. As a matter of fact, at the Bilotta Gallery, there's a whole bunch of art by celebrities, and so it's really good. It's amazing. Like Billy D. Williams is really a terrific painter. Anyway, if you're interested in that, you can go to the gallery and see it.
Oh, the work is beautiful. Your work is particularly beautiful. I was telling Frank earlier that I first saw it about 8 years ago online one day when I was curious as to, I wonder what the cast of Leave It To Beaver is up to right now, and that's how I came across your sculpting pieces, and I was so taken. And I think when I was, the other night when I was on YouTube, it just triggered the memory, and lo and behold, here you are. Of course, I was actually, at that time, I had my own art gallery in D.C., so that was before I got into the career that I'm in now, which I really enjoy, talking to people like you. We only got a few minutes left. I will definitely have you back on the show if you're interested, because there's so much more to talk about. We did have some technical issues earlier. But do you have any messages you want to give out right now? We also wanted to talk to you about your passion for sailing. I know Lauren mentioned that yesterday. And you showed me some beautiful photos.
Well, I love sailing, and I lived on my boat for a few years. You want to see the boat?
Sure, yeah. If you got a photo, right on. That sounds perfect.
Here was the boat that I owned and lived on.
Beautiful.
And
beautiful.
It's a fabulous boat. It actually won the Tahiti, the the Bermuda race in 1937. So it was really a good boat, and it, I loved it. It was fabulous. But I've liked sailing, ever since I was kind of a late teenager. I didn't start as a kid, but it's a great pastime, and it's so relaxing. And if you get a chance to get on a sailboat, do it.
Sounds like a good plan. We only have a couple of minutes left. Thank you, Tony, for being my guest today. I really appreciate it very much. Frank, thank you so much for helping put this in motion. Without a doubt, you have a beautiful gallery. We will be in touch and make this happen again. Do either of you have a quick little shout out that you want to share?
Go ahead, Frank.
I'd like to say for Tony, right now we're on Facebook Live. Tony just has so many great Facebook fans out there, and it's just a lot of fun going on his Facebook page and seeing all the comments. So thank you for that.
30 seconds. I'll be back. Join us next week, everyone. I got Max Major here. Tony, thank you so very much. Don't go anywhere. I'm going to I have a couple more words for you, but we're going off the air right now. But I'll be back next Saturday on Coastal East. Stay well, folks.